Hi, this is State Senator Bill Weber from Senate District 22 in southwest Minnesota. I'm here in the gallery of the Senate chambers today to visit with you for a little bit about the budgeting process. You know, it gets to be a fairly complicated situation by the time we deal with the various departments and the budgets and what have you. And I want to talk just a little bit about the process, about some of the terms you'll be hearing, and about some of the information that may show up in news story that maybe needs a little more information to be complete. Now, the reality of it is the targets were released a week ago. And if you want to know what a target is the projection of new money or lack of new money that we will actually be putting in any particular department. And then there's another item that we need to talk about, and that is the tails. And the tails are carryovers from the previous biennium that weren't spent or weren't fully funded in that year, but will be fully funded in the new biennium. So with that in mind, let's talk a little bit about the budgeting process further. You're going to hear in education, for example, that we have a target of $300 million. Now that means we're looking to put $300 million new dollars into education. Now there are some people that are going to say that, oh, that's not nearly enough, and they may be right. But the reality of it is, in the next biennium, we are also bringing forward tails from the previous biennium of almost $800 million. Now, $800 million of tails, $300 million of target money or new money means that in the next biennium, we will spend $1.1 billion more for education than we spent in the previous biennium. Another, perhaps more dramatic example is that in the current targets, we have a $335 million negative target for health and human services. And people are saying, how can you cut health and human services? We're talking about nursing homes, we're talking about our adult living centers, residential centers, we're talking about a whole multitude of programs. Well, the target is a negative $335 million. But if you look at the projected budget for the next biennium, what we're actually seeing is an increase in spending over the previous biennium of $2.2 billion. That's right, an increase of $2.2 billion. You see, when the press likes to talk about cuts because we maybe aren't going to spend as much as everyone thought we would spend. But instead, we are spending quite a bit of additional money. So it makes for a complicated process, it makes for a complicated discussion. But these are the facts as it relates to the budget that's coming out. Now, there are some of our budgets that had a zero target, which means we essentially are spending the same money, or we're spending the last budget plus the tails. And there are other budgets that have a negative target. At the end of the day, we all recognize that the numbers we talk about today may not be the same numbers that we talk about at the end of session. We don't know where that discussion will lead. We will have to negotiate with the House, we'll have to negotiate with the governor, and where that negotiation leads to remains to be seen. Needless to say, it's going to be a bit of a rough road. There'll be some bumps and bruises along the way. But at the end of the day, we will come to a budget, I'm confident, that meets the basic needs that we have as Minnesotans. Well, then you say to me, well, Senator Weber, if we're going to talk about the need for this money, why do you have tax relief involved in the budget? Well, I think it's really important as we talk about what the economy is in Minnesota. Let's first go back to the issue in southwest Minnesota that we've had with such a high percentage of people that have individual health care policies. They've seen increases of 60, 70, 100%. They've seen a massive increase in their deductibles, all which takes money out of their everyday budget and is less money to be involved and spent in the economy. The income tax cut that's being proposed, quite frankly, doesn't amount to a huge amount for any of us as individuals. But collectively, we are putting over $400 million into the economy. When it goes back to the people, many of whom will be at the lower ranges within the income tax structure, these are dollars that they will spend in their everyday livelihood. And it is important for us to bolster the economy, to get the economy moving through private investment. And so whether we talk about the income tax cut, the exclusion of Social Security for senior citizens, all this will help bring back a renewed economy. On a brighter note, let me just say this, that the True Shrimp project that I have proposed is actually funded in the Senate Agricultural Finance Bill. And people say, well, there again, you're spending some money that, why are you doing that? And I say this to you about that issue. We have an opportunity to jumpstart a new industry that, quite frankly, will result, if it is successful, in hundreds of millions of dollars of new construction and jobs across the state of Minnesota. Its actual operating will provide many jobs, good paying jobs, and it will also provide an ownership possibility to many local people in the communities in which these harbors are developed. We need to be able to grow Minnesota. If we are to advance Minnesota, we first have to grow Minnesota, and we have to grow its citizens, its businesses, and the economic base from which we can get the necessary tax revenue that we do need to have to operate as a state. So, in the weeks ahead, there'll be a lot of discussion, there'll be a lot of news stories. Always believe everything you read or see and hear, maybe not so much. Find out what the rest of the details are before you make some final decisions. For now, I want to wish you a good rest of the week. Thank you for listening, and may God bless.